Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. I always love digging into these stories, and this time we're heading straight into the heart of World War II.
Ah, World War II, a
Yeah,
period that never ceases to fascinate.
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? I got to give a shout out to our listeners out there. Someone actually reached out and mentioned something about the way we say World War II, and you know what? They're right. It's not
Okay.
WW2 or some shortened version. It's World War II, full and clear.
It's easy to get caught up in abbreviations, but you're absolutely correct. It's World War II. And that attention to detail, that's what these deep dives are all about, right? Getting it right.
Exactly.
Wow.
We're all about the details, and today we're diving deep into a story about a P-51 Mustang pilot and his plane. And let me tell you, this plane had a name that you won't forget.
Oh, I think I know the one you're talking about. Is this the Cripes A Mighty? The one that flew with the 375th Fighter Squadron? Part of the 361st Fighter Group? Saw action all over Europe.
That's the one, Cripes A Mighty. I mean, come on. You
Yeah.
can't hear that name and not want to know more.
Right. Oh, absolutely. There's a story behind every name, and this one, well, it's a real reflection of the pilot himself, Lieutenant Colonel Clint McHenry.
Okay, Clint McHenry. So Cripes A Mighty was his plane.
It was. And the name. It was pure McHenry. It was his catchphrase, something he'd say in the thick of it all, like some people might say, good grief, oh, McHenry. He'd let out a cross mighty.
I love it. So we're not just talking about some ace pilot here. We're talking about a guy with a personality.
Oh, absolutely. And that personality, it wasn't just for show. It was a part of his leadership. It made him the kind of pilot other pilots wanted to follow. You see, McHenry, he had this way about him. He was a skilled pilot, no doubt. But he was also incredibly sharp, tactically. Always cool under pressure. And he could inspire those around him. And those qualities, well, they were absolutely essential, especially when you consider the kind of missions the 375th was flying.
Okay, so what were these missions? What were they up against?
Yeah. Well, think about it. The U.S. 8th Air Force, they were sending bomber fleets deep into enemy territory during the war. And those bombers, they needed protection. That's where the P-51 Mustang came in. That's where squadrons like the 375th proved their worth. They were the guardians, the escorts who made sure those bombers could hit their targets and make it back home.
So we're talking about some seriously intense situations here.
Absolutely. We're talking about going head-to-head with the best of the Luftwaffe Messerschmitt Bruff 109s, Focke-Wulf 190s. These were high-stakes aerial battles, dogfights at 20,000 feet speeds that would make your head spin.
Can't even imagine the kind of pressure that must have been.
It was immense. It took incredible stamina, mental and physical, to fly those missions day after day. But McHenry, he seemed to thrive in it. His experience, his quick thinking, his ability to stay calm under fire, it not only kept him alive, but it made him a truly effective leader.
So it wasn't just about being a good pilot. It was about leadership, about strategy, about keeping your cool and inspiring others.
Exactly. McHenry had all of that. And in a way, his personality, it's almost like it became a part of Cripes A Mighty, a reflection of his spirit, his never back down attitude.
It sounds like there's so much more to uncover here about McHenry, about his leadership, about the challenges they faced.
It really is amazing when you think about it, how these personalities, these individuals, they had such a huge impact on something as massive as World War II.
It's true, it's like their stories, these little glimpses into their lives. They help us connect with the human side of history, what it was actually like to be there.
Exactly. And McHenry's story, it goes beyond just being a skilled pilot. He was a leader, and not just any leader. He was a real innovator when it came to tactics.
Okay, so what do you mean by that? What kind of tactical innovations are we talking about?
Well, for starters, he was all about preparation. I mean, meticulous preparation. Before every single mission, he'd pore over aerial photos, intelligence reports, anything he could get his hands on. He wanted to know what to expect, anticipate enemy movements, potential threats. He wanted his pilots to be ready.
So it was about using information as a weapon, almost.
Exactly. He wanted his pilots to be as prepared as possible, know what they were flying into. But it went beyond just knowing the facts. He actually encouraged his pilots to think for themselves, come up with their own tactics, be adaptable in the air.
Wow. So it wasn't just about following orders. It was about giving them the freedom to think on their feet, make decisions in the heat of battle.
Exactly. He trusted them. And that trust, that willingness to give them ownership of their roles, it created a real sense of camaraderie within the squadron, a real sense of confidence.
That's pretty amazing, especially when you think about the military. It's usually all about following orders, that chain of command. But McHenry, he was doing things differently.
He was, and it worked. He understood that in aerial combat, things change fast. You can't always stick to the plan. You need pilots who can think for themselves, adapt to the unexpected.
Which makes sense. I mean, we're talking about bomber escort missions, right? Those were long flights. Lots could happen.
Exactly. They could last for hours, grueling physically and mentally. And the P-51 Mustang, it was perfect for the job. It had the range, the speed.
You keep mentioning the range and the speed.
Yeah.
Were there other things about the P-51 that made it so effective for these missions?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The P-51, it was a real technological marvel for its time, you know? It had this laminar flow wing design. It gave it incredible lift, reduced drag so it could fly those long distances. And then there was the engine, the Merlin engine, a British design. It gave the Mustang so much power, it could keep up with the bombers and outmaneuver the German fighters.
So it sounds like it was a combination of technology and skill that made the Mustang so successful.
Exactly. And the 375th, with their focus on training, on preparation, on being flexible in combat, they were able to take all of that and use it to their advantage.
Can you give us an example, like a specific mission where we can see that in action?
Sure. There's one mission that really stands out.
Yeah.
It was during a bombing raid on a synthetic oil plant in Merseburg, Germany. These plants, they were vital to the German war effort. So the Luftwaffe, they were determined to defend them.
So the stakes were high.
Oh, yeah. And the Luftwaffe, they threw everything they had at the bomber formations. But McHenry, he knew this was coming. So he positioned his squadron further ahead of the bombers than usual.
Why did he do that?
He knew the German fighters would try to intercept the bombers early, but before they reached their target. So by extending his squadron's patrol area, he basically created a buffer zone, a line of defense that the Luftwaffe had to get through.
So they were intercepting the interceptors. That's brilliant.
It was. And it worked. The 375th. They engaged the German fighters head-on, disrupted their formations, kept them from reaching the bombers. They didn't wipe them out completely, but they bought the bombers valuable time, time to reach their target and do what they needed to do.
And that time, that delay, it could have made all the difference in the world.
It did. And what's even more impressive is that the 375th, they did all of this with very few losses. Their flexibility, their ability to adapt, it paid off big time.
It sounds like McHenry's leadership and the 375th's approach to combat, they were a perfect match.
Exactly. It wasn't just about flying skill. It was about thinking ahead, anticipating challenges, being ready to adapt. And that's a valuable lesson, no matter what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's fascinating to see how these small decisions, these tactical choices, they can have such a big impact on the bigger picture.
They really can. And that's one of the things that makes World War II so interesting. It's not just about the grand narrative. It's about understanding how individual actions contributed to the way things unfolded.
We've talked a lot about the tactics and the leadership, but, it must have been incredibly tough on these guys emotionally. I mean, flying these missions, facing that kind of danger day after day.
Oh, absolutely. It took a toll, a huge toll. You have to remember these were young men, some of them barely adults, thrust into this world of constant pressure, witnessing incredible things, experiencing horrific losses.
Yeah.
It changes you.
It's easy to forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
We see the planes, the battles, the numbers, but behind all of that, there were real people with real emotions, dealing with things most of us can't even imagine.
Exactly. And those experiences, they stayed with them, Even after the war ended, some of them struggled to adjust back to normal life, haunted by what they'd seen.
It's a reminder that the impact of war, it doesn't just disappear when the fighting stops.
It doesn't. It ripples outward, touches lives in ways we can't always see, and it really highlights the resilience of the human spirit, Despite the trauma, so many of these pilots, they found ways to rebuild their lives, to find meaning, to move forward. It's pretty incredible.
It is that ability to adapt, to find hope, even in the darkest of times. It's inspiring.
It is, and it's something we can all learn from, Their stories, they remind us that even when things seem impossible, there's always a chance for growth, for renewal.
When I think about the name Cripes A Mighty, it's more than just a saying. It's like it represents that spirit, that determination to face whatever comes your way, with a little bit of humor and a whole lot of grit.
I think you're right. It's a testament to McHenry's personality and the culture he created in the 375th. They didn't back down from a challenge. They embraced it. They met it head on with skill, with courage, with that McHenry flair.
So when we look back at the 375th at Cripes A Mighty, at all of this, what can we take away from their story? What's their legacy?
I think it's a story about the power of individuals to make a difference, even in the midst of something as big as World War II. It's about leadership. It's about innovation. It's about the unyielding spirit of those who fought for freedom.
And it's a reminder that history is more than just dates and battles. It's about people, about their stories, their courage, their moments of humor. It's about understanding the human experience in all its complexity.
Well said. And it's a story that continues to resonate today. It inspires us. It reminds us of the importance of understanding the past so that we can build a better future.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the story of Cripes A Mighty and the 375th Fighter Squadron. It's been an incredible journey.
It really has.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for being here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep. Until next time.